remember my story? I think everything has just started, and I don't really know what to do now. You might ask me why I was so shocked and didn't know what to do. I think you remember that I had a perfect boyfriend named Andrew. We kept in touch and dreamt of being together one day. But rejecting Nathan's proposal was not an option, because such news could have really tragic consequences for him. I don't even want to think of what could happen if I wouldn't marry Nathan. I had to be careful. I decided to visit my parents and stay with them for a while. I told Meryl, "Love is great, but we need to tell Nathan the truth. We should discuss the situation. You, as Nathan's mother, should help me to explain everything to him." She replied, "Dear Chloe, love is such a delicate feeling that words are not always necessary. I can see how good your relationship is." And she hugged me with tears in her eyes. "I am so happy for you both." I went home and felt upset. Nathan followed me like a puppy. My parents asked me, "How are you? What's the news?" And I answered, "Mom, Dad, I'm getting married, and this is my future husband. He has proposed to me, and I said yes." It was purely formal. You can imagine what happened after that. My dad took a deep breath to shout at me, but couldn't say anything. Mom started crying and freaking out. Nathan gave a handkerchief to my mother and said he would take good care of me during all his free time left after taking care of our children. Mrs. Merrill also arrived. We all gathered in the living room to discuss what had happened. Nathan was talking to our tropic fish in the fishbowl. Many arguments were presented, and a lot of things were said. My parents demanded from me to stop visiting Mrs. Davis and Nathan. Mrs. Davis begged us to understand the situation. If Nathan understood that I had never planned to marry him, he would get into the hospital again and probably never get out of it, or even die of heartbreak. At this moment, Nathan came up to my mother and asked her, "Will you love and visit your grandchildren? I hope you will, because my mother is going to meet the Lord soon, and she will not be able to take care of them." We were shocked. Mrs. Davis was crying in silence. When Nathan returned to the fish, my father said I had to marry Nathan. We looked at him with surprise. He added that it would be a fake marriage, but Nathan had to be unaware of that fact. We all had to be very good actors and pretend everything was true until Nathan felt better or forgot about this idea. This seemed to be the best solution, and I agreed to it, though I had my doubts. The next week, Nathan and I were busy shopping for toys, cute bottles with little chickens, funny hats and bibs for our future babies. The view of these tiny items made me feel a little better. In the evening when we got home, we put all the things we had bought on the bed and looked at them with admiration. Nathan was incredibly happy. We spent many nights in the same room. I read fairy tales to him. He enjoyed falling asleep to the sound of my voice. He put his hands under his cheek as if he were a child. He actually was a child. That day, I read Magic Castle to him. He fell asleep very fast. Soon after that, my boyfriend Andrew called. He said he was going from the airport and wanted me to meet him. I covered Nathan with a blanket and went out to see Andrew. We met at the park located close to Meryl's house. We were happy to see each other. We were cuddling and enjoying each other's company. We hadn't seen each other for over a month. We were whispering words of love to each other, kissing and talking. Andrew promised to move to my city and marry me. Suddenly, I saw Nathan. He approached to us very quickly and then pushed Andrew. Andrew was surprised. Nathan took my hand and started to pull me away. Andrew thought Nathan was crazy, so he took my other hand and began pulling me too. They were both trying to pull me, moving in quite the opposite directions. I was shouting, then Andrew stopped and punched Nathan on the face. Nathan fell down, looked at us with frightened eyes, and ran away. It took me about 5 minutes to explain the whole situation to Andrew. He seemed to understand, and we started looking for Nathan. He wasn't at home. Mrs. Davis was sleeping peacefully in her bed. We searched the park, but Nathan wasn't there either. Then, we searched the entire neighborhood, but couldn't find Nathan. 2 hours later, I woke Mrs. Davis and we went to the police. In a couple of minutes, they found out that Nathan got hit with a car and he was in the intensive care of the nearby hospital. We rushed there. Fortunately, Nathan wasn't seriously injured, except a head trauma. We prayed to God till the morning, hoping Nathan would be all right. I introduced Andrew to Meryl as my cousin. Mrs. Davis was sitting and looking at the same spot, whispering some words so quietly that we couldn't hear anything. Andrew was worried about Nathan. He decided it would be right for me to marry Nathan because it was my fault that such a nice guy had fallen in love with me. At that moment, I thought he was right. Nathan was a good man, and I wanted him to be happy. I wanted him to love and be loved, and if it were me who could help him, so why not? Early in the morning, Nathan's doctor came out to us and said Nathan woke up and wanted to see his mother. Mrs. Davis thanked the Lord, and we all entered the ward. Nathan was glad to see his mother and looked good. I embraced him and started covering his face with kisses. I was really happy he was alive. But Nathan moved me aside and asked Mrs. Davis who I was. We were all amazed. Then Meryl said I was Nathan's distant relative. I waved my hand at him. Nathan asked his mother when his baseball contest was going to be. Mrs. Davis smiled and said that the contest had taken place while he was in the hospital 4 years ago. We met Mrs. Davis a few days later, and she told us that Nathan was fine. She also mentioned that 4 years ago, he had been hit by a car, and he had retrograde amnesia and often forgot things that had happened to him. Now, everything was all right, but he couldn't remember the period when we met. I was happy to learn that he was good, that he didn't remember me, and that I didn't have to marry him. I could be with Andrew now. However, I always feel good when I recall the happy days when Nathan was my friend. To tell you the truth, I recall those moments quite often. That's my story. If you have enjoyed it, please click the like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to our channel.